compelling
Yeah.
guy.
Okay. Oh, yeah. Well, thanks for being here, Steve.
Yeah.
Chief Jenkins, thanks. I was hoping to start, I want to ask you a couple things that you and I have talked about before, but for the camera. So what people don't understand is the relationship between, let's say, the Ventura County Sheriffs and then immigration enforcement. So when someone says, why can't the sheriff intervene, or why can't the sheriff stop ICE from coming into Ohio or anywhere? Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, so we abide by California Senate Bill 54. It's the California CARES Act. It was passed in 2017, and that basically lined out what we're prohibited to do as local law enforcement when it comes to federal immigration enforcement. So it really spells it out, what we can and can't do. And basically, what we can't do is go out and when we're in the community actually ask people's status. We're not supposed to do that. We're not supposed to be detaining or arresting or investigating someone because of their status, their citizenship status. We're not supposed to share information with any of the federal agencies as far as immigration enforcement, with some exceptions, and I'll get into that with serious felony crimes. We cannot no longer detain anyone longer in jail, like to honor an ICE detainer. We can't do that. So it just kind of spells out what we can and can't do.
Just on that last point, so let's say immigration detains somebody, you're not allowed to keep them in your cell, for example. Is that what I just heard you say?
Kind of, let me explain further. Okay. So let's say someone is in custody on a crime, and ICE gets information that they're in our custody, and they're gonna request an ICE detainer and say, hey, we can't pick them up today, but we wanna pick them up tomorrow. The old days, we would have held them for 5 days, for INS, back prior to 2017. Now we can no longer hold them. So, and to clarify, ICE doesn't even pick them up out of our facility. They would have to somehow figure out their release date, and then the person actually walks out of our jail.
Out of the county?
Out of the county jail, and then ICE would have to be sitting out there waiting for them to pick them up.
And that's a state law.
That's a state law.
Passed in 2017.
Yep.
And it sounds like the intent of that law was to protect the illegal or undocumented immigrant. Is that fair?
Yeah, to be fair, the purpose of the law was to create a sanctuary status for the entire state.
Yeah.
In response to, at the time, President Trump saying he's going to do mass deportations. So.
And do you know about other states, or how, is it common to have that kind of law, or is it I guess there's probably a lot of variation, probably states that would not have that law.
Yeah, so what I found is there are a few states that took on what California did, because California is kind of the forefront of a lot of progressive thought. So there were a few states that took that on, kind of like Illinois and different states. And then there are states with different variations of it that didn't go quite extreme, but still didn't want the local officers.
What it did do was it created a clear line between state, local, and federal law enforcement, I guess, in that regard.
Yep.
Yes,
Right, okay.
very clear line. Yes.
State, federal?
Well, so the immigration enforcement is federal.
Yep.
But then this is county, this is our county sheriff.
Yep.
So anything, I'm including the county sheriff as the local law enforcement, and then and the state law enforcement would be, what would state law enforcement be an example of?
Well, yeah, have your California Highway Patrol.
Oh, sorry, California Highway Patrol, correct.
And the right to pass laws that are,
And the state can pass laws?
that govern the
That's
state.
correct,
Yeah.
that's correct.
Yeah.
But so, if we could use a case in point, so the thing that happened in Camarillo not too long ago. So we see the immigration enforcement's there, there's a lot of protesters that are coming. So it's progressing for a while, and then the sheriff is called, so then officers are there, and they're a barrier between the immigration agents and the protesters, if I'm understanding that correctly.
So, I apologize, I don't wanna get too much in the weeds
No
of the
problem.
Oxnard incident.
Yeah, no problem.
But what I do know is our deputies showed up because, yes, federal officers were asking for help. You know, they're taking rocks, bottles, violent acts towards them. And, so our role was limited. We did not wanna be part of the operation, we're trying to abide by also the law, at the same time, perception, it wasn't as important to us. So when you say create a barrier, I would say it wasn't a barrier, it was they were taking rocks and bottles, they're kind of surrounded, they can't get out, there's no way for the federal officers to get out of there safely. And they did
Federal officers are ICE. you're talking about.
ICE, yeah,
Okay.
yeah, but,
Yeah.
well, let's clarify that. At the time, there were federal officers from many agencies.
Like the FBI.
Yeah, it wasn't just ICE.
It wasn't just
So,
ICE,
Yeah,
yeah,
so,
yeah.
cause you gotta figure, you don't have that many ICE agents, but there were quite a few there, so they pulled
Yeah.
from all sorts of
Yeah.
different agencies, but then they did have the military staged nearby. Now, they have their own rules of engagement. They can't really participate either unless, it meets a certain threshold. And even then, it's just to allow them in and out, the military. So the military has their protocol too.
Which is what happened in the cities.
Yeah.
Like, that's what's happening.
So basically what happened was they were wanting the military to come in to help them, but, there were protesters blocking their way. So then they called us in to help move the protesters. That was the initial call, help move the protesters so the military could come in. That was our initial, that was our response, that's what they were asking.
And was that an
So they
easy-
weren't asking for us to actually come in with shields up and,
Yeah.
so really, we weren't a barrier. We
I
were
see.
just trying to create a path
Thanks for the
for the
clarification.
military to come in.
Was that an easy thing for you to say yes to, or was that conflicting or difficult?
Well, he wasn't personally there.
Well, I mean, from
Yeah,
your
so-
agency. was-
So just to clarify, the sheriff of the Ventura County is Sheriff Jim Fryhoff.
Yeah.
Right, I'm just the sheriff's captain. And he would have to speak for his role in that. But from what I understand is, that was our role, just to kind of help with an opening. And then let the military come in and add more protection to the federal officers.
He's been public in saying he wants to adhere to SB 54, the law we just talked
Yes.
about, and that's the clear line for him, he says. So he was just on a panel recently where he said that, and then he was published in the paper saying that as well.
Now, he did say though, if we get a call of federal officers being assaulted, we're not gonna stand by and allow that
Mhm.
either, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
we're not gonna, they are our public safety partners.
Yeah.
If you think
Yeah.
in the broad term, they're whether they're ICE, ATF, FBI, we think of them as partners.
Yeah.
So
Absolutely.
if they're encountering violence, we're gonna come in and help.
Yeah. So-
But we would do that for any
Federal agency, yeah.
It could be a whole group of
Yeah.
immigration attorneys that are taking rocks and bottles.
Mhm.
We're gonna come in and protect them too. I mean, we're not, does that make sense?
Sure.
You shouldn't really just put a designation, we're gonna help prevent any violence coming into an area,
So ICE is really controversial. I mean, there are people who think ICE is just doing a horrible job. They wear masks. You see footage of them tackling people to the ground. And there are other people who think you just gotta do this. I mean, if you're gonna enforce the law, if you're gonna say, we are a nation of laws and we have rules about when you can come to this country and when you can't and under what conditions regulations, and if you break those rules, we're obligated to enforce those rules, and that isn't easy. It's not like you can be real polite to someone who is here undocumented or illegally. And if they resist, you can't allow them to, it's not up to them. You can't allow them to say, well, no, we're not gonna go with you and walk away. You have to restrain them.
Is that your water right there?
That's mine.
Okay.
Sorry.
That's it.
So as a citizen, it's very hard to judge. Is ICE way overreaching? Are they like hurting people when they don't have to, when it's not necessary? Are they being abusive in their power? Or are they just doing their level best to do what they're supposed to do, which is find people who are here illegally and remove them? Can you tell about that?
So I have spoken to agents and supervisors of ICE, and what they've told me is, you know, that when you get a lawful order, because keep in mind, most public safety agencies are paramilitary. When you get a lawful order, it's not you to question the order. You're, okay, we'll go out and do this.
Mm-hmm.
And if you notice, under one president, they were told to put on, they're, like a better term, put on ice. They're sitting on their hands because they were ordered to do that, right? And they're going to do that. That's a lawful order. Then a new president comes in and says, no, letter of the law, right? It's still a lawful order.
Mm-hmm.
So they're following a lawful order, and what they keep saying is not us to question the order. Now you can kind of question maybe some of the tactics, right?
Like you brought up.
But really, it's really hard to judge them off because this is a lawful order that's being asked of them.
Mm-hmm.
So now get into, okay, are they being abusive or of power to things? To me, you got to go case by case. It's unfair to put just a blanket, you know, broad stroke over this. So you get into masks. Okay, why are they wearing masks? You know why they're wearing masks?
Well, I know what some people say. Some people say they're wearing masks for protection. That
Yes.
they feel like they're at risk if
They're being harassed.
They're being harassed, and that's a necessary way to protect themselves.
From what I understand, the conversations I've had, that is the reason. Because if they're not wearing masks, we're living in a society where, and there is a name tag, we're living in a society where now they're finding out where they live, they're doxing them, they're creating chaos for this officer who's just following a lawful order, you know, and he's not wanting people to show up at his front door and protest, harass, and maybe even worse, you know, and they are fearful of their own families, you know, they don't want someone showing up and just, you know, the violence, you know, could continue in their home. So then now, right or wrong, now they're choosing to, you know, wear masks, so then you don't know who they are and you can't find where they live and don't have a name tag. So if you really break down the why, now, do we agree with it? No. I want to be very clear. We all have name tags. We don't wear masks. It's local law enforcement.
So when you say you don't agree with it, do you mean you would, if it were up to you, you would have them not wear masks and sustain the risk? Or do you mean by that we don't agree with it in the sense that we don't wear masks?
Well, let's back up. So I feel that as local law enforcement, we've done a really good job as far as, you know, through the years. It took some time, but with transparency and building relationships with the public and that trust. And so I think we built up to a point where, yeah, we could not wear masks and have name tag, and people don't respect us, and we're doing our job and doing the best we can, and then, you know, then we're communicating and engaging with it. And so we've built this relationship up to where we feel like, yeah, we don't have to wear masks. You know, you can know who I am, and I don't feel there a fear that you're gonna show up in front of my house
So
and
is
harm my family.
Could you say then,
So-
like it's even if there is a good reason to wear a mask for an ICE agent, it is eroding some public trust. That's a consequence of it.
Absolutely.
Okay.
But what I'm saying is, this started way before the wearing of masks, is what I'm trying to say.
I see.
Are there some things federal officers could have done, right, to build that relationship and the trust up in communities to where you didn't even have to wear a mask? I don't know, I'm just posing the question. You know, could they have done something different?
Yeah,
You know,
yeah.
and at the end of the game, at the end of the day, have no mask and wear tags
Yeah.
but you're not getting threatened at home. You know?
So-
So I don't know. I don't know that answer.
Can I just bring up the one example? Let's just use the one example here in Ojai. The way it appears, again, I hear everything you're saying. The way it appears is, here's a dark car with men coming out in masks with no identifying badge or any name. And because they're concerned about staying there too long, they take the individual with a judicial warrant into the car very quickly and drive away speedily. It looks like an abduction. And so that's, I think, a lot of the concern that I see, not just on social media or news outlets, but from literally individuals saying, I don't know who to trust, or I'm walking down the street fearfully because I've never seen this before.
So the administration that made the decision to say to ICE, wear masks, and go get this done, could have done that differently. And they could have said, let's have a 30-day period during which we're gonna tell everybody what's going on, how this enforcement is gonna change, because the last administration had a different way of doing it. So now I'm the administrator, I get to make the call, and I see it differently. So I could have, is this right? I could have said, let's take a period of 60 days or 90 days during which we educate the community about how we're going to enforce this law. So if you see us coming, here's what we're doing, and here's why, and here's how it goes, and all that. Would that have made a difference if they would have done that?
I think so. I mean, if you take what local law enforcement's done, I'm not just saying us, I'm saying nationally, I think we've done a good job as far as building those relationships with the communities. I think if the federal officers took that approach, I think just things would be different, you know? And, yeah, I mean, going back to another president's days, right? Can I say names?
Oh, sure,
Yeah, okay,
sure.
President Obama.
Yeah.
Okay. Mass deportation is going on. He was very clear, right, the line. And I didn't see officers wearing masks in this, but they had a pretty good approach. Hey, this is what's going on, and this is how we're doing it. And there just wasn't a lot of pushback that you're seeing now. So then of course you have to question, okay, were there things you could have done better before the deportations happened to, you know, to build relationships with the community and say, okay, well, let's work together on this. Well, what makes sense?
Yeah, yeah.
I want to ask you, this is about the relationship between the federal agents and the local agents, but also related to what just was passed, in Sacramento about federal agents not being allowed to wear masks. But then we heard from Homeland Security, we're not going to obey the order. So you may not know the answer to this yet, but after January 1, if a federal agent is wearing a mask, do you have any directive about what you're supposed to do?
We don't have directive yet, and I really don't want to speculate, but I would have to ask the question, who's going to enforce that?
Well, that's
Because
what I was getting
federal
to.
officers can take us into custody,
Right.
local law enforcement. But they're pretty much protected from us taking them into custody.
Right.
Does that make sense? So
It does.
I don't see how this is gonna work out, who's gonna enforce that. But that's something that hopefully at the state level, we have to replan.
So then I'm wondering, is that just kind of like a symbolic bill then? If nothing changes, you, as you say, you don't have authority to arrest a federal agent, but they have the authority to arrest you. So that's what's not clear, is what this bill is intending to accomplish.
Say what the bill says exactly,
The
please.
bill says that federal agents are not allowed to wear masks in the line of duty with a few exceptions. SWAT is one, so the special weapons, unit. The ones that do wear masks now, or somebody wearing, let's say, some kind of personal protective equipment like a gas mask, exceptions are carved out, but in general, it's about Homeland Security, ICE agents not being allowed to wear a mask in California, January 1.
And can I add?
Yeah.
It actually, it's all public safety officers operating in public.
Yeah.
Should, it's a misdemeanor
Thank you.
to wear a mask, not just federal.
Isn't there a jurisdictional problem like that?
That's what I'm asking. So it did get passed. It got passed through our legislature and then our state legislature, and then the governor did sign it. So it's an attempt to try to intervene in some ways, but that's what I'm asking Steve that question is. It sounds like a jurisdictional question.
So by jurisdictional, I mean the state versus the federal.
That's what I mean.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
So I'll go out on a limb here, I'll tell you, so unless I get different direction from the sheriff or, if you were, after January 1st, we know of a federal operation in town, and those officers are masked, and someone calls me and wants the deputies to go out there and make an arrest of a federal officer, I will tell you, unless I get different direction, I will tell you, we are not doing that. So, I'm not gonna jeopardize my deputy's safety, and then what are you gonna have, a blue on blue? We're both pointing guns at each other?
Right.
That doesn't make sense, it's not, I just don't see how that, I don't see us getting involved in that at this point.
Yeah.
Now, things could change, and I don't know.
We've got a few months to figure that out. Can I
so
ask about the judicial warrants too? So I'm gonna ask you to repeat a little what you and I have already talked about privately. So I'm on it to verify this. Every time immigration comes into the valley, let's say, or the city, you're informed beforehand.
Yes.
And then,
Well, you say
Okay.
every time, but, I mean, I'm hopeful it's been every time.
okay, every time you know of.
Yeah. I mean, there could be times they're not, but
I
I
see.
hope that's not happening.
The presumption is that they're working with you in some way, at
Yes.
least if it's notification.
Yes.
And then there's administrative warrants and judicial warrants. Do you wanna talk about the difference between those two?
Yeah, so judicial warrants is approved by a judge, so, usually federal at that point. And then your administrative warrants can be signed off by an ICE, like supervisor, usually it's a certain rank. So there is a distinction between the two. Administrative, that's kind of in-house, they can sign those, and then, judicial is what the name says, is from the judge.
Correct. So then if someone comes and says, I have a judicial warrant to arrest this person, the probable cause is already implied because of the judge signed it. And so then they proceed. So then presumably, if they couldn't enter a private residence or a private business, let's say, without a judicial warrant, is that correct?
Good point. So there are rules of, even on judicial warrants, if it's just an arrest warrant, it doesn't necessarily mean you can breach or go
Okay.
into a home or a business or,
Yep.
so there are rules there.
So that's why they wait outside sometimes, right?
That's
Among
when
the
they
other
wait outside, yeah.
Okay.
Definitely administrative warrants, they are not supposed to be going in homes and businesses, so. Judicial is, there's a lot, there could be a home attached to it. And that's what I'm saying, but if it's just on a judicial arrest warrant, there are limitations.
Now, and I've heard you say, and if you want me not to repeat it here, I'll erase it. But I've heard you say, if immigration were to come to a business and say, show me your employment lists, I've heard you say to the employers, just check with Chief Jenkins. So you've told them you are ready to look at what their warrants, what their authorization actually is.
Yes, so just to kind of clarify that.
Yeah, please.
That's if, hypothetically, ICE is at your business, wanting all your business records for all your employee records, right? So names, addresses, everything else. And let's say they do have a search warrant or a judicial warrant, right? But you want verification, because it's just so messy right now. You want verification, absolutely call me. I can either show up or get on the phone or find out, is this a legitimate judicial warrant? That's well within our rights.
That's due process.
And, yeah,
Well, that's
and
a real
I'd be able to say yes or no. So if I say yes, well, you gotta comply with the warrant.
Mhm.
You know, if I say no, well, something's not right. But most likely those people probably wouldn't stick around anyways before I get there, you know, so.
So in the couple of instances that I could think of where there was a judicial warrant, where people, citizens, were very upset about what they were seeing, and maybe rightfully so, had you been there, you would have said, due process is happening.
Yeah, oh yeah.
I mean,
If, let's just say hypothetically, I verify the judicial warrant.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, no one's gonna stop that.
Right.
Arrest from happening.
Right. Does that make sense what I just asked? So in other words, they drive up, they take somebody, it's disturbing, but it's not against the law, had they a judicial warrant for this person.
Because they have a judicial warrant in hand. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
lawful at that point. There's nothing.
In the way that they do that, it's legal to do that, but in the way that they do it, is it being done, I don't know how to say it, in the least offensive way that is effective, or is it looks at times from what you see like they're really overly aggressive, that if the job is to keep this guy from going out that door, there are a lot of ways you could do that besides slamming him on the ground and putting your foot over his throat. Not that they do that, but it looks like that. The stuff that you see on television looks like they're being more aggressive than they need to be to get that job done. Now that could be that we only see the bad ones. You know, the camera guy likes to take the bad pictures and show them to people. Or it could be that that's just how they do it. Or it could be that I'm just naive and that you're gonna stop somebody from going through that door, you gotta stop them. And there's no other way to do it than to just, do what you have to do to stop them. What do you think about all that?
So it's really hard to judge tactics, and I'll tell you why. When you're talking about the way you're just describing. So let's just say it's a judicial warrant for a misdemeanor, DUI, guy has no criminal record. Yeah, do they need to go in and slam the guy on the ground? I would say those are bad tactics.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not meeting, the circumstance isn't meeting the use of force or the operational, tactics. Now, which it does happen, he has a felony warrant for a shooting or something. You believe he's armed with a firearm. He has an extensive criminal record. You have a judicial warrant in hand. That's gonna be quick and decisive. You're probably slamming him on the ground.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, you're not gonna allow him to pull a gun on you.
Mm-hmm.
So you
Yeah,
don't want him getting away.
Yeah.
You don't want him getting to a car with a gun in it. So the tactics change based on
on what you're
criminal background, the crime itself, right? The
So
circumstance.
to follow up on that then, in one sense you might say, we're watching these images on TV or on the computer, and then you say, well, it looks like it's too much force. And what if I'm hearing you right, you're saying, it's possible it is, but it's also
Yes.
possible that it isn't because we don't know all the facts.
Yeah.
So like you said, case by case, you would have to evaluate it.
So I'll just give an example of I thought it was disturbing. So they do a raid in a Home Depot parking lot, and they're slamming everyone to the ground. You can't tell me they knew all their records. They believed they had firearms. And so to me, those are bad tactics. These are people just looking for work. Does that mean so?
It does.
So yeah, sometimes you can look at it and go, those probably weren't good tactics.
Yeah.
But what I'm saying is these individual ones, it's gonna be careful jumping to conclusions. There could be an actual reason why they're using those tactics.
That's good.
Yeah.
That's useful.
Yeah.
So, this is just speculation, of course, on our part, but it appears, at least, that in some of the ways, there is intending to be another outcome than just deportation, but it's something like intimidation, possibly. Now, in other words, when I look at some of the imagery, like you just brought up the Home Depot, which I also saw, and you think, well, I'm not trying to put words in your mouth, I'm saying how it appears to me is, in some cases, I want to give them the benefit of the doubt. In other cases, it looks like they're trying to be rough, and they're trying to be stealthy and anonymous, and so that makes us all nervous. That's how it appears to me. And so it's not quite against the law, but it's intending an outcome that I think people are responding to and they're worried about.
The other complication seems to me is that these people who came here illegally or without documentation did that without any problem, without any difficulty, without any, no one told them that this was a bad thing that they were doing, that they might go to jail over it. It was tolerable. It was tolerated.
I think that's a lot of speculation on your part.
You don't think that's true?
No, I don't, because I think that they are very concerned all the time about being picked up before Trump 1 or 2. In other words, they're trying to live under the radar 100%. And they came here possibly with a lot of threats. So it's not like you waltzed in and everything's cool and everybody says it's okay. No, I think that they're always nervous. They're always nervous about being uncovered. And the accounts, I don't know if you've read any accounts of people crossing the border, it looks daunting. It's not looking. So tell me, what's your point though?
Well, my point is that if you change the rules, you create a difficulty, because then if you change the rules, now enforcing those rules that you just changed becomes much more difficult than it would have been in the beginning.
I agree with that 100%.
Yeah,
so an employer, for example, who has said, hey, you've basically tolerated undocumented workers or people that I sort of know their fake social security numbers, but it serves everybody to have them here. Now the rules have changed. It's very difficult to enforce, and we're all upset about it.
Right.
I agree with that point 100%.
So ordinarily, in that situation, you would have an adjustment period. You would say, okay, we're going to change the rules. Go be notified.
You're doing that right now in your job. The notification is, we're going to start enforcing traffic more seriously. First, this period is the warning period.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, do you know why we took that approach though?
I was just saying.
To me, it's the most fair way to handle it. Give people notice.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Give people the opportunity to correct or change their behavior, before you give a citation. So if I can articulate, hey, we went months and months and months without giving citations out. We're doing an educational approach, a warning approach. And then after 4 months, and you've heard of this, you heard, hey, there's more traffic enforcement going on, and you still choose not to change your behavior, well, then I took the most fair approach I
That's
could
your
take.
point 100%, isn't it? So
Yeah.
maybe you're saying possibly we could have had this interim period to say, hey, world, United States, this is gonna step up. If you're in process, finish the process, or whatever. Get yourself as right as you can be.
Right.
That's
Now,
interesting.
on the other side of that, if you and I were trying to make this policy back when, and we were in a position to make that policy, and I said what I just said, you might say back to me, wait a minute, if we're gonna do this, we gotta do it. And it's gotta be decisive and fast. If you're gonna say we're gonna have this adjustment period, well, you're just gonna muddy the water. In the end, we're gonna come to the point of it's not optional, and besides that, politically, the president has said, we're going after this and we're gonna do it rapidly. We're not gonna fool around with it and take a long, long time.
I see that.
So while I say an adjustment period would have been better, I also recognize how
Of
that would
course.
be difficult.
And politically, it might have been difficult to pull it off, but I would say it has to do with the end of the policy. In other words, if you said, hey, we've got to figure this out. We understand there's criminals. People who have committed crimes here. We don't want them here. Everybody agrees with that. But if we said, hey, there's also a bunch of people here. Yes, they came here. They overstayed their visa, whatever the circumstance. They've been here for many years. We got to figure out how we can get them right. So it depends on what the end is, I guess.
Okay. Along those lines, can I kind
Yep.
of explain an issue? Just I would like people to understand. So SB 54 with, I'm sure, good intentions, right, to create like a sanctuary place. There were parts of it that really created some of what we're seeing now too, right? So I'll give an example. Prior to 2016, we had we called them INS at the time, but it's same as ICE. we had an INS agent, like, assigned to the jail, and before people with serious violent crimes or, an undocumented, status, before they're released, the INS would just catch them, and so then now they're never even being released, and then they go through the deportation process. What this law has done now is that we can no longer communicate with ICE. They're definitely not in the jail, right? We don't even communicate with them. We can, by law. And so we have to release the people, the people. They're released, they're out and about. Well, what does ICE have to do now? They have to go hunt them down somewhere, right? So instead of catching them in the jail, or giving us the opportunity to detain them for like 5 days till, INS can come pick them up. Now they have to literally be in the field, waiting for them to walk out of their house and then, get them. So, and I'll go further with that. I think that's created issues that no one really saw. I'll tell you why. I talked to an ICE agent that said, man, I really wish we could just still get him out of the jail. I'll tell you why. We were looking for one individual. We saw him leave. He gets into a car. We pull the car over, just wanting him because he's the one we have a warrant for, right? Turns out the front passenger had a misdemeanor on his record, okay, undocumented. 2 of the back passengers were undocumented, but working and doing good, no criminal record. And guess who went out of that whole car?
All 4.
All 4 went, when really the target was just the one with a felony record, right? And a warrant. So it's like, okay, well, is this, I just have to ask.
Yeah.
Is there a different way we can kind of still have the SB 54, but like tweak it a little bit to where, we do what makes sense?
When you told me this example too, where you said, if the way it was before the current situation, where they wouldn't be wearing a mask, for example, and they would come and they would show you the warrant, so you would get pulled over. Like, let's say they had the warrant for you, they knew you were walking down the street or whatever, they were waiting for you. They would show you the warrant or something, like they would talk to you, and then you would go into the car. But now they don't want to spend tell me if I'm getting you right, they don't want to spend a minute longer than they have to in public because of the intervention that's going to happen from the public. So now it looks like the unintended consequence of SB 54 is they sweep them into a car. So it looks like a kidnapping. So that's maybe something that wasn't intended in that. Did I get that right?
Yeah, and I want to be straight on not condoning the tactics they're using.
I get that.
Right. That is not how we would operate.
Understood.
Just coming in and just swooping someone up into a van.
Right.
Because you're right, the perception of that alone is just horrible. Right?
That's right.
So, but yes, you're right. There used to be a day where ICE agents would just take their time, because they could take their time. Verify who they're talking to, verify that it's the same person, and they could be on the side of the street for 20, 30
So now the
minutes.
verification's happening at county or something like that, right?
I don't want to speak for them, but
Yeah.
I mean, they have a picture, they
Mhm.
pretty much know it's the person, but a true verification is probably happening later on.
So at the beginning of this process, the idea was undocumented and criminal record. Those were the people that were gonna, right? And then, but then did it officially move? Or did it just turn out that, well, like you said, in a situation where you got 3 people in the car, and one of them is undocumented and has a criminal record, the others are just undocumented, and you're gonna take the one. Are you gonna look at the other 3 knowing that they're here illegally and turn your head away from them and say, well, no, you're okay, you're not okay?
No, of course.
Or are you gonna say, no, we're here, we're gonna take all of them? Isn't that, that's a dilemma, isn't it?
So Matt Levere, I think, answers your question in one sense. He said, when quotas started being initiated, things expanded.
Yep.
So if it said, oh, we're actively seeking people with a felony, great, we'd all probably more or less agree with that. But now when you said, I want you to get 3,000 people a month or something like that, then now you're casting a wider net.
Yeah, I think I wasn't thinking of that. That makes sense when we did talk about that before.
But it's, your question's still an active one, which is, it's the end. What's the end of the policy? What are we trying to do? If it's, because I'm the first person to say, if you're gonna have a law, let's enforce it. If we're not gonna enforce it, let's not have the law. I'm 100% behind that. Or let's figure out, how do we alter the law so that we can live with it?
Well, I mean, and it's really an administrative question altogether. Do we have quotas? Is it a good idea to have a quota?
That's a great question
You
to
could
ask.
easily say it's not a good idea.
You're
Do
right.
not have quotas. That will put pressures on that will complicate things and make it worse.
Like waiting at Home Depot, for example, like you might say, oh, maybe you have a warrant or maybe you don't, or you have a warrant for one person, but you're waiting at Home Depot to meet a quota, not, as you point out, unless they have their record in front of them of everybody who walked in, which how likely is that? Not at all. Then it's a different end.
Are quotas given in other kinds of areas in law enforcement? Is that an administrative thing that's done? Like
Yeah,
you have
so
a- yeah.
I'm glad you brought that up. So quotas, you know, let's just say citations, arrests, you know, I mean, there's not too many categories where you would have to have a quota. We do not have quotas. But I'll kind of tell you the why behind it, right? So why are quotas bad? Okay. One is, so you make 10 traffic stops, okay? And right away you go, you know, and it's all about changing behavior. Think about it, consequence, discipline, about changing behavior, okay? So you pull.
We know all about behavior,
Yeah,
so it's our
yeah,
business,
So
yeah.
3 out of the 10 people you stop, you can tell right away they're not gonna change their behavior, they're arguing with you, you're like, okay, ticket.
Yeah, yeah.
The other 7 go, I'm so sorry, or I didn't realize, or, you know, they have some excuse, and you're like, officer, I will slow down. I promise you, I'll evaluate my driving and slow down. I'll do better. And the officer goes, you know what? I think in this moment, it's better just to give a warning, because I think they're already gonna change their behavior. I don't need to give a citation, okay? And then they're off on a warning. To me, that's good policing.
Yeah, yeah.
Especially for smaller towns, you know. No, you can't just cite everyone, right? I mean,
You'll ruin the local economy.
yeah, but you'll kind of ruin that relationship. you
Yeah,
have with
sure,
community
yeah,
and
sure,
law enforcement.
yeah.
So the 7 out of 10, let's just say hypothetically, get a warning. To me, that's good policing. Now, if I had a quota where I told that officer, I need 10 tickets a day, guess what he's doing?
Yeah,
Yeah, they're all
He's
getting-
citing all 10.
yeah,
When really they shouldn't have been cited.
yeah.
You know, like, he's gauging the person going, you know what, this is a warning, you know.
So
like-
what's the motivation behind the administrative leader who says, let's have quotas? Why does he say that?
Well, I can speculate, he wants results.
But I
For
mean-
whatever reason, right?
He needs to look good.
Yeah. I mean, but-
Or sh-
Let's just say, you know, I come into Ojai and, you know, traffic's a big issue, traffic collisions and this, and the public is putting pressure on me. We need change, right? And I go, okay, and I go, you know what? We're gonna cite everyone. Oh, and the reason why I got the job is I told the city of Ojai, hey, I'm gonna change things, but I mean, everyone's getting tickets. When I come in, we're gonna make a big impact on this thing. You know, you go from no tickets to lots of tickets, and I get the job. That to me gave me permission, right, or however you want to word it, to go in and just ticket everyone, right? Because now I feel like that's what the people, that's their voice, that's what they wanted. Instead of like sitting back, slowing down, going, is this really the best approach? You know, I got the job, but do I need to tweak that a little bit? Maybe present it a little bit different, like, hey, do we really want the hammering? I don't know, you know, so I think I think at the presidential level, he felt that like the people spoke, you know, they wanted change, and then he wanted to make a big impact, see, I'm doing my job, and reinforce their voices, instead of just sitting back on timeout. Is this really the best approach, you know? And you know who he should be listening to is boots on the ground. And I'm sure there's lots of ICE officers going, time out.
Yeah, yeah.
This is not how we like to operate, you know,
Mhm.
that makes sense?
So
If he actually listened to the troops, I
Yeah.
think we'd see a lot different.
So the person making those calls is Homan, right? Is that right?
Who?
Isn't it Homan?
At Homeland Security?
No, Homan.
Yeah, Holman, the border.
The border,
Oh.
isn't he the senior most guy?
I think
Wouldn't-
Christine Nome, I thought, was
Yeah,
the senior
Nome.
Homeland Security. The
Okay.
Homeland Security.
So it's not above, it's not someone in the White House who is making that quota decision. I mean, they could theoretically, but they could make any decision they wanted, but that would ordinarily be left to the head of the agency, right?
Well,
Well-
normally I would say that might be true, but it doesn't seem to be true now. They
In
seem
this
to be
case,
getting
yeah.
strict directives.
Yeah.
I guess there's a lot of pressure.
Yeah.
From the very top. so.
Uh-huh.
But even, I think going back to your original point, you said, originally it started with, we're gonna arrest the criminals, and then it turned out to, we're gonna, basically, everybody who's here without documentation is gonna go. And so, it did seem to expand and I think the polls seem to be reflecting that people are less comfortable now that it's expanded. That's how the polls seem to be indicating. Because they see their neighbors being taken. They thought it was gonna be the bad guys.
Okay. I can kind of give my
Mhm.
2 cents on it. This is
Yeah.
more of an opinion though, is that I equate it to a criminal that we're looking for. Who's the citizen? Right, let's take out this legal status. And do you think I have his address on record?
Mm.
He gave an address, doesn't mean he lives there.
I see.
I mean, criminals, they know how to hide, they know how to, so what I kind of anticipate's happening is that, initially their intent was to go after criminals, but they will quickly find, it's really hard to find them.
Uh-huh, and to tell who's who, yeah.
So then, because you're still pressured to, for lack of better terms, to meet quotas, because you wanna make an impression.
Politically show.
You wanna show that we're doing something, then now they're starting to float into the people that do have addresses on file, which are your lower level offenses, or they don't even have a criminal record. But because you have their address, now they become a target, because, you're trying to boost your numbers. It's like low hanging fruit. Kind of sad, right? That's sad in a way. It's like, the intent was to get the criminals, but now because you can't find all the criminals,
That's interesting.
now you're, going a different direction. And you're right, I don't think, I don't know, but I don't think that's what everyone was thinking was gonna happen,
Right.
because, I'll give an example. I knew a gentleman who was here for about 10 years, illegal status, was in the neighborhood, we all loved him. He did have a DUI, years prior, but he handled it all and did his time and, made that mistake. And then, he's working, productive in society, and then now he's getting deported or was deported. And I'm like, ooh, that was my neighbor. I'm not saying what the right or wrong is, because I don't, like you said, a law is a law, but at the same time, that's still my neighbor. That's someone I cared about. And, anyone could make a mistake with a DUI misdemeanor, all across the board. So I'm like, oof, I don't know, that was a hard one. It's, your heart kind of goes out.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
That's a tough one.
I mean, the wrong decisions create an environment where there's no right thing to do. It's like whatever you do is gonna not be the right thing.
Yeah. And then you ask this individual, why didn't you get your citizenship? You've been here 10 years.
Yeah.
And then you know what he says?
Mm.
You know how hard it is to get,
Mhm.
it's not like the government goes, hey, you do A, B, and C with 5 years, we're gonna give it to you.
Mhm.
No, it's not that simple. It's like you gotta jump through hoops and this and that, and pay money and attorneys and then, I mean,
Yeah.
it's just daunting. What I've heard, it's just daunting to become a citizen in this
We have
country.
we have a friend who we helped go through that process for that very reason.
Did you find it was the same experience?
It was hard, but it was doable.
Okay.
It could be done. But it was work. I mean, she had to be prepared to take the test
Yeah.
and pass it, and she had to work. She had to work for some hours.
But just to say, in your neighbor's case, now we're gonna be interviewing somebody who's in the public defender's office named Brooke, and she pointed out that among the ways that one can get a green card and become a citizen now, your an employer wants you to come, that's one. You're married to somebody or you're a relative to somebody. There's the general lottery that's about almost 2 decades long to wait, and then the final is amnesty from your country, you know, that you're being threatened. So your neighbor, if he said, I want to become a citizen now, he may have to go back to his country of origin and then apply.
Oh, man.
That's not reasonable.
No, that's not reasonable.
So there's no easy way. That's kind of where I'm coming to in this work now that we're doing is I say the people you actually want to give citizenship to, your neighbor, or let's say even the neighbor who doesn't have a DUI, let's say even more, there's no easy way for them to do it. That's where Reagan's program, I thought in '86, basically said, you've been here, you're here, great, here's the path, let's figure it out. And so we're gonna see something similar in what's in the Congress right now, that tomorrow when we talk to Congressman Carbajal, that's what they're trying to do, is to say, here's a person who has done these things, they deserve this way. We'll see what happens, but that seems like an oversight in my view. Wherever you are on the board, figure out, how do you help that person, your neighbor?
So is 154 gonna make it better or worse?
Which 154?
Is it, did I?
54?
The mask one?
Yeah.
Mask.
Because the SB 54 is, they can't work with them. The mask, I've got the number. I've got the number of that.
Yeah, I forgot to.
No, sorry, I meant 54.
Oh, 54.
Is 50, the new
Yes.
state law.
From 2017.
Wait, no, you're talking about the one where they can't wear masks or the one where they can't work with them?
I'm sorry, I'm not sure which one I'm thinking about.
Well, so the 2017 is Steve can't work with ICE. The new one that's going to be in process January 1st is, I forgot the number, that federal agents can't wear masks, but we're asking the question, how is it?
It's the second one that I was thinking about. Do we know the number of that?
Yeah.
What that bill is, and I'll ask the question with the
Yeah, I forgot.
correct.
I do, I
We
can
can
go,
look it up.
it's in my bag.
Here.
Oh, sorry.
That's okay.
Well, so I'll just
You want me to look it up real quick?
Sure. Then it can be official.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, it's not right now.
My phone's in use right now. I thought there was a 6
Oh,
on
yeah,
the
okay, 627.
627.
Okay.
Okay.
627, Bill 627.
So is Bill 627 gonna make things better or worse?
For who?
Right.
For the country, I mean, that's a change, that bill is a change. Is it a good change? Given the whole picture, is that gonna make the whole situation better, or is it gonna, it was intended to make it better, somebody thinks it's gonna make it better, right? That's why they made the change.
So, if you wanna build public trust, and you wanna bridge the gap between community and law enforcement, okay? You gotta break down the barriers, okay? So let's just say federal agents, federally, they wanna start all over, clean the slate, and they go, you know what, we're gonna take a different approach. We're gonna try to build relationships, build trust with the public, and get them behind us, right? To support us, okay? I would say one of the first things you have to do is get rid of the masks and start identifying yourself, and just do media releases or press releases on what you're doing and why you're doing it. And I'll go a step further. If I was, let's just say I'm the head of the federal agency, I'd be going into California and say, why don't you tell us who's acceptable and who's not? And we'll start there. You know, it's just a start. You know, then California goes, I want all the serious felons out, this, someone this category out. But hey, someone who's here for this, you know, they're working hard, no criminal record, we want them to stay in a place. The federal officers could easily go, you know what, we're gonna respect your area, your state, we'll go after the people you want us to go after. Does that make sense? And then the other people, it's on you, so. It's just, what I'm saying is take a different approach. So, but keep in mind, if their goal was to build trust,
This is not the way to do it.
that's not the way to do it.
Right.
Yeah.
I think it's gonna be a flashpoint, because it's similar to authorizing the National Guard or even the Marines to be in LA or Chicago. You say, well, it wasn't asked for, it's arguable whether or not they should be there, it's in court. So it creates this huge flashpoint of, you've got all these troops standing here doing this thing that mostly we don't like seeing a bunch of troops in our cities, right? That's foreign lands where you see that, but here we are. And so I think this is gonna create a flashpoint in the other direction where you're creating an instance where now you have conflict between these agencies. And so some people are gonna say, if the sheriff doesn't enforce the law, then we wanna renegotiate our contract. And I'm gonna say, of course, we could renegotiate the contract or attempt to, but understand what you're saying here is they don't have any authority to do this. So you created a law to make a claim, to make a statement about what you believe. I totally get that.
But if a city has tolerated injustices, systematic injustices, like people stealing bicycles very, very frequently, people looting stores very, very frequently, and if a city just kind of puts up with that over a period of years, not weeks or months, isn't it reasonable that the federal would say, no, we have an obligation as well, and you're not able to protect people, store owners. You're not able to protect the people who have stores and have a right to have their merchandise protected.
You're making the argument for them being there.
I am.
Oh, yeah.
Well, I'm saying, isn't that a reasonable argument? In other words, it's not a first step, it's a last resort step. It's because this has been going on for a long time. Shops have been being looted and bicycles stolen and people accosted.
I would encourage you to say the way that you're cautioning people to be careful about media. I would offer you the same instance, and I would say, well, what these governors are saying in some of these places is the crime data is not bearing this out. In fact, you're seeing declines, and you see the president saying, well, anything's too much.
Yeah, well, there's also large crime and small crime.
Fair enough.
And with Portland, for example, large crime has decreased, but small crime has increased over that same time period.
I would take Steve's approach if I understood it correctly, which is, okay, is this a problem? How can we help you solve this problem? It's imposed. So and if you ask the people of Portland, oh, thank goodness the federal government's here helping me out, that's not what they would say.
Do we know that?
We don't know that, but I would be surprised if they did. And again, it's gonna be mixed, of course, because there's mixed of views, but to me, it's an imposition on purpose.
With what intent?
I would suggest the intent is intimidation.
So that's a whole different area, and I can't say that that's wrong, but I don't know how you know that's right. How do you know that's what's going on?
Let's not speculate. Only the lack of precedence around this. So if you think of the instances where the National Guard is called, the level of unique violence is much more extreme, and it seems to me the legislator, the executive especially, would use it as a last resort, not as a first resort, always. And then secondly, the Marines. So using the armed forces on our soil without engaging, that is also a precedent of which we have not seen before that way. So again, we could talk about the social media post, but when he says, and I'm going to employ the troops with full authority to use any force necessary, now that just could be him being silly, and maybe that's not going to happen, but it seems to me the intent is there, and that's what he just posted 2 days ago. That the troop, I'm going to employ I'm gonna employ our armed forces and they can use whatever force necessary.
The intent to intimidate.
Mm-hmm.
And for why intimidate?
Why do I think
What's
Trump wants to
gained,
intimidate?
yeah, what's gained by intimidation?
I think he wants to be a totalitarian ruler. That's the answer to your question.
So this is a way of showing his muscle to
Mhm.
keep people from pushing back.
I do think that. And I think we're on the road to totalitarianism.
Well, you're not the only one that thinks that.
No, and I think history bears it out. There's very similar kinds of moves over time. That we're departing from Steve here.
Yeah, we are. But since we're on this, I don't know that I agree with you about
Mhm.
that. I think that that's not, what you're saying is not unreasonable. I think that could be true. But I think it also could be true that you're misreading those actions
Possibly.
and reading into that a fear that you have
Mm.
that is not justified.
Well, I certainly would never put myself above needing to be corrected, but I would say that the signs do seem to point in almost like a tidal wave now that we have not seen before in our country.
Yeah,
So that's how it appears to me.
yeah, I understand. And I can't say that I think you're wrong about that. My position is we don't really know that at this point. It's a worry. In my opinion, it's a worry, but it's not. I don't think it's as clear as you do that that's what's happening.
Yeah, I mean, here's some more benign ways of looking at it. It seems to me, as you could say, spending authority. So the Congress has traditionally been the purse holders, that's in the Constitution. But then the executive branch would be the way that it would effectively or efficiently communicate the wishes of the Congress on spending. But this administration holds up the spending because they'll say, well, I'll choose one example. We're not gonna give the money to the schools even though the Congress had set it out because we don't like what is being taught. We think it's like woke or too much DEI.
Well, do you think that's new? Do you think other administrations haven't done that in
I
the
think
past?
that this one has done it in a way that's extraordinary. And they basically canceled spending that the Congress already approved. So I do think that is extraordinary, and it's very much the totalitarian playbook.
Yeah.
Right out of Nazi Germany and Stalinist Russia.
Yeah, but if that's the standard,
I'm just giving you one.
Yeah.
I'm just giving you one. And I'm giving you one instance of, you asked me, what
But
do I
that's
think?
like saying that totalitarians always shake their head a certain way, and he's shaking his head that way,
Sorry.
so that makes him a totalitarian.
I'm not hanging my hat on the one thing, I'm just giving you one, but I can give you many. The use of the armed forces for personal interest. So I'm gonna go after people that were part of the teams that were coming after me. That's another very common thing, but I can give you 10.
Mhm.
I'm going to have all of the people on January 6th pardoned.
Mhm.
That one, I just don't even know what the counter argument is. They were freedom fighters, they beat up the cop who was there because they were fighting for justice. I can't even, like, that one to me is unbelievable what the argument is. And they're all pardoned.
Mhm.
What's the argument for that?
I don't know. I don't have a good argument. I don't know what the argument for that is either.
It's that.
And I agree with you that on that one, that sounds like an overreach and sounds inappropriate.
Yeah. And now they're serving in
But I
positions.
don't, because it sounds that way, doesn't convince me that it is that way. I mean,
I would just ask you to
wanna
watch the
look
video, you
more
watch the video.
closely.
Hey, look at, just watch the videos of the event.
Yeah.
When they're
Oh,
beating up the
no, I
cop.
don't mean that.
Oh,
I don't
okay.
mean that. I don't mean that I don't think it happened. I think it happened, and I think it was really bad. And I
Okay.
think it needed to be addressed in some way.
Mhm.
But I think that with many of these questions, further examination has changed what I thought had happened from what I got from the news about what had happened. And so I've become skeptical of taking that information as the final information. Not in that particular case. In that particular case, I can't see how that would make sense either. But
Yeah.
in other situations,
Okay,
yeah,
but that one by itself to me is quite disturbing.
I think that one's disturbing too. But I mean, I think there's been overreach by other presidents as well. And it's not uncommon, it happens frequently, in fact, it's common, that
It
it
feels like
becomes a point of controversy.
It feels like a different category to say, I'm going to release all these people that were tried and convicted.
It does.
It's like unbelievable.
Yeah.
And then it's that we're fighting because we don't think he lost the election. Well, even if that, let's say hypothetically it's true, that's not the way to do it. Right? So that's, to me, that's where there's a lot of overreach, and even if you feel like that one's the instance that you can't justify, and all the other ones possibly, let's look at them, there's 20. And the pace that this administration has gone is, I don't feel like the world's seen this, our country has not seen it. And I think that we don't have our authoritarian antenna up because we haven't had it before. Other countries are much better at it.
Well, or alternatively, we do have that antenna up too high, and we interpret too fast because it's politically in our interest to interpret that way.
Possibly. I just think we haven't had, in our government, we basically thought, we expected somebody to be elected president who would want to push all the limits, but we expected the legislative body or the judicial body to not go along with it. We thought that was the check. That has not checked it. So we have our legislative branch at least saying, we're gonna go with his agenda.
Yeah, well, they got elected.
No, fair enough, but I guess what I would say is, do you see my point though, is that we hope, I'm talking Hamilton, Madison, Jefferson, we thought the checks and balances that are in place are gonna preserve power such that no branch will be able to overreach the others. We're not seeing that now. But let's focus on Steve instead of this longer thing. You and I can talk about this anytime.
No, this is entertaining.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
Yeah, so anything else that you would like to say that's on your mind that you think would be, anything that you would really love our community to know that they might not know?
Yeah, I think they know this, but I just kind of want to revisit it, is that the way we look at it from a local standpoint, and the sheriff's office and the sheriff was very clear on this, is we look at residents of Ventura County as they all fall under our umbrella, regardless of
Citizen or not.
Yeah, right, regardless citizen or not. They're a resident of Ventura County. So our goal is to have communities free from the fear of crime for all residents, regardless of status. Okay? So when that's the goal, I just want the public to know that, trust us, that's our goal. So if someone what we want and what I want in our city too is, if a person with illegal status is a victim of a crime, I want them calling 911. I want the deputy showing up. I want them taking care of the crime and getting the criminal in custody, right? And the victim feels safer because we showed up, right? And they weren't withholding information. They're sharing everything because they don't have to fear us, right?
But they're not doing that now, maybe, because they're afraid of calling you. All right.
We have a pretty good reputation.
Okay, good.
So,
All right, good.
but what I'm just explaining the goal.
Understood.
The goal is we want cooperation from all residents of Ventura County. And so, and then plus it builds that trust, relationships, and different things.
That's good.
I will tell you, deputy sheriffs aren't gonna show up and even ask your status. The law prohibits it, but we know better. We're not gonna even ask. So still call us if you're a victim. We want, because we want, one crime leads to 2, leads to 3. So if you're one victim, who knows how many other victims that suspect's victimizing. So we wanna get that person in custody and handle the issue. So that's why we don't care your status, legal or not. That makes sense? So
Yeah.
we just want a neighborhood free from the fear of crime. And the federal stuff, that's their job. So
That's good. That's useful.
So hopefully, you see it out there. I've talked to quite a few, undocumented people. They do feel trust with us. Like when a deputy sheriff drives by, they're not running away. You know, they're not like, no, it's like business like usual, and
Yep.
that makes me happy.
Oh,
You know, that means we're doing our job well.
no, I agree.
Does that make sense?
I love that. I love that.
I'll participate in that, so.
Right, that the sheriffs are driving around town and everybody's happy that you're there. Everybody I know is happy you're there.
Yeah.
That's great.
And then the second part of that, which I'd like to touch on, and maybe I can interject too, is what I don't appreciate is the false rumors that ICE is in town now. You know, since I've been up here, been here since April, I've been notified of 4 times that they've been up here. Every time they had a specific target, a warrant with a picture. I mean, they know who they're after, right? And then these arrests have been seen in public. You know, whether you like the tactics or not, let's not get into tactics. But what I'm saying is 4 times. But do you know how many false rumors? It's ICE, and I've gotten these phone calls, and I have to go out and verify whether it's ICE or not. Turns out it was either deputy sheriffs. We just got a call late last week, and it was deputy sheriffs going out doing backpack medicine for the homeless. And people are calling saying it's ICE, and the picture was in front of the Ohio police station.
Right.
Like, come on, that's not ICE.
Right.
Like, why are you spreading false rumors?
Or
that
people
ICE is
saying,
in town?
oh, this restaurant's closing because ICE raided the
Yeah.
restaurant, and the restaurant was saying, we're not closed.
Yeah, you're hurting.
Right.
You're hurting us by spreading the false rumors. And you know, I heard one individual say, well, if I report that ICE is in town 20 times, well, I'm gonna be right one time. That's not the right approach. Don't falsely report stuff 20 times because you're hoping you're right.
Well,
one
that's
time.
creating a lot of fear too.
And then I'll give you an example of one other thing. This happened a few weeks ago, where you know we heard ICE and deputies were working together on a ranch right by kind of near the summit, you know, and the Painted Pony. And I was like, what? You know, I knew right away that wasn't happening. You know, I mean, the law prohibits it, but so goes to find out that and they went further. They snatched someone from the ranch and took him, you know, for deportation. How are you getting this information? So this all was from someone driving by. They saw 2 blacked out Tahoes on the side of the road. They saw people who they thought were deputy sheriffs in tan and green, and they were just talking to individuals in like jeans and different things. Okay, so turns out it was 2 of our OES, you know, EOC guys, going out and talking to oil employees about, hey, if there's an oil spill here, you know, what are your protocols, and we need to have a plan in place.
Yeah.
That's all that was.
Right.
And then somehow that
Yep.
turned into
Yep.
ICE deputies working together to snatch someone from a ranch.
That's very frustrating.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's frustrating.
Yeah,
It does.
I bet,
So-
I bet.
We've been at this for a while. Is it an hour and what time is it?
It's 1:30.
Oh, we should go.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
Anyway, thanks a lot. This was really, really great to hear from you.
thank you, yeah. we
It gives a
appreciate it
lot of
very
good
much.
information.
Yeah, good.
Thanks. Yeah,
Thank
cool.
you. Thanks
All
for the
right.
invitation.
Yeah, thanks. Gotta take these guys off.
That goes by quick, huh?
It does go back quick.
Well, we got off on a tangent there, but. I think we got some good stuff.
Oh, I did. We definitely did.
Yeah.
I appreciate your time.
So, can I ask,
Yeah.
we're off camera.
Yeah.
So can I ask,
Mm-hmm.
so with
Well, I have something to ask you too.
under Biden and